Yo, new day, new day. I have been cursed with the activate Windows watermark. As you may be able to see, I thought it didn't pick up on the recording, but it was just my ratio that was messed up, so you couldn't see it in any other. It's been there for a while, and I kind of just learned to, just fade it out of existence, which is not a good solution. But all the other solutions I have found, and by that I mean two. I just watched two YouTube videos from like a year ago that all say in the comments that yeah, this thing works for like a couple hours, then it's back up again, or like at least when you reboot the computer and then it's back. So that kind of sucks. It's just seemingly just a permanent issue because I haven't actually bought Windows. I'm just kind of, just riding along, just freeloading on their, using their system, which is essentially what everyone does. That's what I understand anyway about this. But yeah. I'm not gonna do much about that. I changed some scuffed ass files that hopefully will work the next time I boot up my PC, tomorrow morning. It is, I've had so much time to do these videos and I just haven't done them. But yes, past midnight to a average Monday is the perfect time to catch up on some Hollow Knight runs. So yeah, I don't know. It also worked in my favor because you can clearly see that I am lacking. I lose grip of my skill so fast if I don't actually keep it up. I also just yap too much. So that's that's been an issue for a while. I don't need to remind you of that. But anyway, Monster Hunter Wilds is wild. The bomb title drop. It's great. It's awesome. It's pretty goated. There is a lot to talk about, but I will talk about what is going on right now because I should have just yapped every time I did a little tiny thing. I should have made a Hollow Knight video about it because there's so much to talk about with Wilds. Just from like the world to the monsters to just all the technical stuff. Looking at fucking just looking at menus, I guess. Going through like the different weapon types, the different weapons in general. Going through like Artian weapons. That's only the weapons. Then the armor and like the decorations for the armor, it's a lot, man. It's a lot. And I haven't looked at a lot of it, but I'm beginning to now that I can finally, everything is at my fingertips, I'm at the end of the game, as you say. I'm at the point where the only thing I can really do, I've completed 90% of the side quests, and of course all the main quests. There's still some event quests that I haven't done, but it's like, I don't know, hunt a single Quimatrice or something like that, and that's kind of it. That's it. There's nothing more to it. I think you get like some sort of special layered armor or something like that. And nothing really more. That's just it. So the only thing I can do now, which is still pretty fun, is just like grinding, I guess. Because again, the point of Monster Hunter is not really like progressing the plot or anything. It's just a nice, cool side thing that's there. Artistically going through every single side mission, doing them one by one. It's a fun thing to do, right? But at the end of the day, we all know why we're here. We just want to look cool while we beat up some poor monster. And that's all there is to it. So, I'm finally at the point where I can begin doing that, but like actually calculating and making different weapons, different loadouts for different monsters, because they all have their their respective weaknesses and their weaknesses in like special areas. For example, some are very weak in like on their head, in their face. Some are weak on their tails, on their feet, or just like on their body in general. Shut up, by the way. And then there's some that are, they're the elements, the different elements. There are so many different elements that you can make your weapons. I have done the controversial thing I have found out of doing a paralysis gunlance. Oh, thunder! A paralysis gunlance is not the greatest thing I have figured out, but it is a thing nonetheless. The reality is I just didn't. I clearly did not know enough about the Gunlance before I headed face first into playing it as my main here in Monster Hunter Wilds. Back in Monster Hunter World and Rise, I guess in Rise I have touched a little bit upon Gunlance, but I switched between so many weapons in Rise just because the game was so easy. It was a good opportunity to like try out the different weapons, but of course they're very also, you get the basics down, sure, but in Rise there were those like, I don't know, what do they call it, like silk binding attacks or something. So all the weapons are like, slightly more than slightly different, slightly more different than slightly different than they are in World. And of course they changed the weapons, like the movesets, from World to Wilds. Oh god, there are so many words here. But essentially, I'm just looking at menus right now. Is the long story short here. I got to the point where it's the only thing I can do. I can make a bunch of different weapons, and I have looked at I found not just a like Monster Hunter Wild subreddit, but a specific Gunlance subreddit, which I find really funny. Like there are subreddits for literally everything. It's so funny. So their whole shtick is just like, it's just a wholesome little community of like, I don't know, 2,000 people or something. That just really want to, preach the gospel of the Gunlance, which is understandable. The Gunlance is really fun to play. It's great, honestly, but I'm beginning to have some opinions on the Gunlance because I've seen, I don't know, it's weird, because the way I play it with, like, I played it very casually, essentially, not very optimized, and I don't know, I did status effects on my, back when I was a hammer main on World, and that worked wonders. Poison Hammer is actually pretty great in Worlds, at least. So I thought, hey, Poison Hammer, Paralysis, Gunlance, they're kind of the same, right? But because, Hammer is a very simple weapon. It's just one type of damage, or like one type of attack. It's, you bonk your enemy on the head with a big stick, and that's it. There's not much more to it. But with the Gunlance, I didn't know this, but there are apparently very clear differences between what the the actual gun and the lance part, which makes sense when you think about it. I just haven't thought about it. So, okay, there's a lot to go over, and I just read through this, so correct me if I'm wrong here. But at least what I think is the affinity basically doesn't matter on the Gunlance. The sharpness of the weapon, that's not the same thing. The sharpness does matter, of course, but the affinity, aka the chance to critical hit, doesn't really matter, because that only counts on the lance part. Aka not the explosion part, because the main way you do damage with the gun lance is your shells, aka your explosions. So the only real way to use your affinity is with there's this attack where you use all your shellings, and then there are so many different parts. I can't remember the name of all of them. My bad. I can't even remember the name of the moves. Yes, the moves have different names. But that's not the point. The point is you have this vial-looking thing that's not really a vial, but when you use it, you basically shoot like a thing that latches on, a thingamajig that latches on to the monster that kind of does like tick damage for like roughly 5 seconds, like a small tick damage, but still, damage nonetheless. And that's the only part that actually does, is affected by the affinity. And I think also just the normal lance, but you rarely use it. You use it more than, other things, at least if you know what you're doing. But again, the main way you deal damage is through explosion, so affinity does not matter. And I really gotta... I saw some posts of some loadouts, some weapons in there that just had like... even like, the best speedrun out there for Argveld on Gunlance is... first of all, a blast element, not a paralysis. Of course it's not a paralysis. Of course it's fucking blast. Blast has every single speedrun. Yeah, blast damage is just crazy. I'm almost convinced that I need to do blast damage. Also, the Artian weapons with blast damage is... my god, my monkey brain sees a very big number and thinks, wow, that is crazy. And it is pretty crazy. So I might be switching from Paralysis Main to Blast Main, just, not that there really is a meta yet, because again, the game has been out for like a week. But it's the most meta there is, I guess, is... blast, and then there's also different shelling types, and like if it's strong, there are normal, then slightly weak, and slightly strong, which I think doesn't make that much of a difference, at least compare. It has something to do with one of them. It either boosts normal attack damage or elemental attack damage, and then, one goes up, one goes down, and it's again back to the which type of attack does what damage that I haven't really gotten down yet, that I really need to look over to understand completely what's going on. But then you also have these explosions I'm talking about. You have like 5 of them usually in just the normal shelling types. Then there is, of course there's a decoration, I think it's called Magazine, that extends that, but there's also different not shelling type, is it called shelling type? There are different types that is like, wide, short, and normal also. So the normal is 5, the shorter one is 2, I think, and then, if I'm correct, the long one or the wide one is 7, which can then be extended to 8. I think that's how it works. Don't quote me on that though. But I've done my fair share of the short version, which I don't like. It's not that great. Just having like 2 shells, it's not doing it for me. Because you use one of the shells to like begin your chain of attack, and then your, the big explosion thing only has 1 explosion. Like, bruh, that kind of sucks. I don't know, probably again just my monkey brain thinking, wow, big explosion, big damage, and not really looking at the numbers, which is probably a detriment to my playstyle in general. But, whatever makes me happy, I guess. It's, yeah, it's hard to keep track of all this, I gotta be honest. I'm just kinda very loosely explaining it and hoping I don't fumble on my own words. Because, god, there's a lot to keep track of in terms of this. And this is only the Gunlance, this is not like... of course there's a difference between, like, looking at the menus and deciding, what's best and actually being out there in combat. And what the fuck was that? What? Wait, what? Okay, I'm gonna have to rewatch that if I'm schizo. Oh well. But the Gunlance is not the most advanced weapon in the world. It's just, keeping track of the different types of damage and what moves does what type, and what, keeping track of that, and balancing in terms of each monster, their weaknesses and all that. It's not necessary, but it's just it's just you feel so cool if you are able to keep track of it. That's my experience, at least. So yeah, essentially, all this boils down to I need to look at some more menus. I need to upgrade, especially my decorations, because I haven't been using them very correctly. They are just kind of thrown in there as best as I remember. I have some protection jewels. I have some, I don't know, fucking evasion jewels, because I also run a bow on the sidelines. I don't know, I'm kind of flip-flopping about, around between bow and Gunlance, which feels kinda awkward, I gotta be honest. It's not the best combo in the world, by far. On paper, it sounds great. One for very close quarters and for, like, slow-moving targets, and the other for fast-moving targets that are, a bit more hyperactive, if you would say so, if you could call them that. So I have, for example, the evasion mantle, or the jump mantle. I can't actually remember which one. I think it's evasion mantle. No, evasion jewel. Freak. It's, it's not useful whatsoever on the Gunlance, which just kind of, you put up a shield and then you fucking own that territory you're in, and there's nothing the monster can do about it. So of course, it's a great balance. But when you have these jewels that you need to fit, when you have the decorations you need to fit into your build too, and there are different types of, there are jewels that can only be on your weapons, and then the jewels that can only be on your armor. If you have to switch between 2 such different playstyles, it's kinda hard, I gotta be honest. It's not the greatest thing in the world, but I try to manage. But there is a meta about Gunlance and the... I see a lot of people on this subreddit that I found running the magazine Iron Wall combo. You know, because 3 stars, 3-star jewels can have 2 different ones, and magazine is the one that gets you, you know, just an extra shelling type. I also think it makes you... Okay. Fucking great. I think it also makes you reload faster, and Iron Wall... I'm pretty sure that's the one where you just kind of take less damage if you block, and you block a lot with the Gunlance. There's also one called Artillery that people are using, but I'm not really sure what it does. I just spotted a lot of people using it. And of course, because it's Reddit, there are a lot of different opinions on what, you know, what jewels to use, what decorations to use. And also what elements and stuff to spec into, and what armor, you know, in terms of their skills they have attached to them. There's a lot to keep track of. Of course, that's, you know, part of the Monster Hunter experience, I suppose, so not much you can do about that. Anyway, I made today's run. I'm gonna head out. I am tired. Yeah, good night.